After a young woman was set on fire this morning, she is fighting for her life. We're talking about 26-year-old Bethany MaGee, who was basically doing nothing wrong. She was just riding the Blue Line train in Chicago when a stranger poured gas on her and set her on fire.
She was riding the train like thousands of Chicagoans do every night, scrolling her phone, minding her own business, when a stranger walked up behind her with a bottle of gasoline. A young woman engulfed in flames, a career criminal with more than 70 arrests, and a city asking, how was this man even free? This is the story of the Chicago Blue Line arson attack, a nightmare that unfolded in the heart of the city and changed everything.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy identifies the Chicago train victim as 26-year-old Bethany MaGee, who now suffers from severe burns after police say she was set on fire by a career criminal.
Chicago's Loop District lay quiet under a November sky as the L train's fluorescent lights glowed in the early evening. It was Monday, November 17th, 2025, around 9 p.m. and the CTA Blue Line train was cruising inbound toward downtown from the west. On that evening, 26-year-old Bethany MaGee sat alone reading her phone, her back to a stranger in the train's rear car. Bethany MaGee was an ordinary young Chicagoan with big dreams. A beloved daughter, sensitive, caring, intelligent, and imaginative, who loves living in Chicago. Bethany was riding the train home from work when disaster struck. Meanwhile, a 50-year-old Chicago man named Lawrence Reed boarded the same train car at a station west of downtown. Reed was no stranger to crime, a career offender with decades of arrests. He had a long rap sheet. Chicago police and federal reports cite roughly 50 to 72 prior arrests. In August 2025, he was arrested for aggressively attacking a hospital social worker, leaving her with serious injury. Even then, Reed often violated his curfew. Court records show he repeatedly left home when he was supposed to stay in. In short, Reed had been given plenty of second chances, to quote ATF agent Chris Amon, but he roamed free on that November night on the train. Reed quietly sat several rows behind Bethany. Then, just before 9:30 p.m., as the train neared the loop, everything changed. Surveillance video later showed Reed standing up with a bottle in hand. Reed removed the cap from the bottle, a small container filled with gasoline, and poured the liquid all over Bethany, completely out of nowhere, the U.S. attorney said. Bethany felt her head burst into flame. Reed snapped a lighter and ignited the gasoline-soaked strands of her hair, and in an instant the young woman was engulfed in flames. Bethany screamed and ran for her life, literally into the fire. She desperately ran from the rear toward the front of the car. She sprinted to the far end of the car, rolling on the floor and clawing at her burning clothes. Christopher Flores, one passenger, described what he saw. She was running off the train towards the middle of it, completely engulfed in fire. Another bystander rushed to the platform. She's on the ground, crying. The train lurched into Clark/Lake Station downtown. And still on fire, Bethany stumbled and collapsed onto the platform. In the chaos, Reed simply walked away from the car and disappeared into the station crowd. But a good Samaritan and emergency crews quickly swarmed around Bethany. Firefighters and paramedics found her lying on her back, crying and suffering severe burns over more than half of her body. She was rushed to Stroger Hospital's burn unit, where doctors fought to save her life. Her condition was critical, with third-degree burns on her face and torso. By all accounts, she was fighting for her life. Newsweek. Within minutes of the blaze, Chicago police had gathered evidence on the train. On the floor of car number 3236, they found a half-burned gasoline bottle, a lighter, and the charred remains of Bethany's jacket. They also uncovered footage from earlier that night. Around 20 minutes before the attack, Reed had stopped at a Citgo gas station on Harrison Street. He was captured on camera filling a small container with gasoline, wearing the same dark jacket and glasses seen during the assault. Then he quietly boarded the Blue Line at Kedzie-Homan Station. Within 24 hours, police arrested Reed downtown on November 18th. During the arrest, he reportedly shouted threatening phrases. The next day, federal prosecutors charged him with terrorism against a mass transportation system. At his initial court hearing, Reed behaved erratically, yelling, singing, and claiming to be a Chinese citizen while insisting on representing himself. The judge reminded him of his right to an attorney and ultimately ordered him held without bail. Reed faces a terrorism charge for attacking public transit, carrying a maximum penalty of life in prison. If Bethany MaGee had not survived, the death penalty could have been considered. Prosecutors planned to keep him jailed through trial, citing him as a flight risk and too dangerous to release. While ATF Special Agent Chris Amon added, Lawrence Reed had no business being on the streets. A judge also ordered a mental health evaluation after Reed's erratic courtroom behavior, raising questions about his competency. Bethany's family, meanwhile, issued a statement through their lawyer. They thanked the public for prayers and support, but asked for privacy as Bethany battles through her recovery. They described their daughter as strong and kind, and said only that, "We would like to thank everyone for their prayers and well wishes as our daughter receives care. We will not be providing updates at this time," and asked for privacy. Public outcry and policy debate. The Chicago attack quickly sparked a nationwide debate over crime and public safety. On Thanksgiving, President Trump criticized local officials and judges for letting him out again, mentioning Bethany by name. The White House echoed this, calling Reed a career criminal who should never have been free. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson called the arson senseless and vowed to use every resource to protect transit riders. Police emphasized that attacks of this severity are extremely rare on the CTA and promised to bring the offender to justice. The attack sparked a major debate over Illinois' criminal justice system. Critics blamed the SAFET Act and the court's electronic monitoring program, saying Reed should never have been free after violating his ankle monitor. Governor Pritzker defended the law, noting that most released defendants do not commit violent crimes. Chicago's mayor boosted CTA security, and Bethany's fundraiser quickly passed $200,000. Officials called the attack a tragedy that should never have happened and promised to review the system. This brutal, unprovoked attack, which federal authorities have labeled an act of terrorism, left a quiet night on the Chicago L forever changed. Today, Bethany MaGee fights through agonizing recovery in a hospital burn unit. Her life has been altered in an instant by the flames. Lawrence Reed sits jailed, facing the full weight of federal law. As Chicagoans grapple with shock and outrage, questions remain about how a man with such a violent history was still on the streets, and what can be done to keep transit riders safe. For now, the city mourns and waits, waiting to see if Bethany will recover, waiting for the courts to deliver justice, and waiting for a safer future. And that is the chilling story of the Chicago Blue Line arson attack. A case that left an entire city shaken, a young woman fighting for her life, and a justice system under fire for the mistakes that led here. As we wait for answers and hope for Bethany's recovery, this case reminds us how one ordinary night can turn into a lifetime of consequences. Thank you for watching True Crime Diaries. Stay alert, stay safe, and join us next time.